I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Monday and we are diving into our redraft rankings. Since it is redraft season, we're going to be doing our top 25 quarterbacks today, top 25 tight ends Thursday. So getting ready. We did the redraft mock draft last week. People are starting redraft leagues. I started one slow redraft league. You getting excited for some redraft leagues, Dennis?
You know, funny you should say that, because really the only redrafts I do are the Scott Fish Bowl when I'm fortunate enough to get in there, and then the Roundtable Listener League. And I've been thinking, because my dynasty, I play so much dynasty, so I don't do a lot of startup drafting, and Scott Fish Bowl doesn't really give you a good feel for how redraft is. And so I've been getting this urge to just kind of maybe randomly join a league or two for the hell of it. But honestly, I'm so busy with off the air stuff between my day job and my oldest son just moved into his first apartment, so I'm stressing about that. My youngest son is getting ready to have his first football game Saturday scrimmage, and it looks so apparently there's some rule that they can play 6 quarters a week, and so it looks like he's the starting center and the starting nose tackle on the freshman team, and then he's a backup guard on the JV team. So I don't expect him to get a lot of JV snaps, but I think he's going to probably get a series or two per game to play, to give the other guy a rest, or, if something happens and somebody has to come out. And, it's really interesting because him and I are having a lot of conversations about, he's a big kid. When he started this football journey, he weighed about 290 pounds, about 6'1". And that's big for an adult. He was 14 years old. And he finished the 8th grade football season, started at center all year. And the coach basically said, look, conditioning starts January 3rd, I think is when they went back to school. And my wife and I are like, oh, this is going to be a battle. And he was like, nope, I'm there. 6 a.m. for months and months and months. 6 a.m. until we got to summer. And then they started, and the only time he missed were a few days when he was sick. And just to watch the transformation in him, and now he's talking about his diet. And I know I eat, too much of this kind of food, and I really need to do this. And, he went from, I don't think I can do this physical stuff to, yeah, I've got this. And, well, he's still got a long way to go as far as strength and conditioning. I'm his biggest fan. And then he made his first travel baseball team. Last week we had the high school baseball meeting. Baseball stuff is coming up. And while he's playing football, he's not going to do a lot of baseball the next 2 or 3 months. Baseball is really his first love. So we're going to see where that goes. And then, obviously we'll be doing our best to not stop at Caleb's house every day on my way home from work now that he's moved out and still try to helicopter parent and smother him, especially since I'm still paying his tuition and subsidizing his rent. But, and work is just busy.
No, I feel like everything's busy, but we
And
are
like my second dozen quarterbacks. I'm like, there's like, I feel like there's this tier of quarterbacks that's like that giant tight end tier. They could be tight end 8, they could be tight end 20. There's like this group of quarterbacks. Could be QB 13, could be QB 25.
Yeah, and I say it's redraft QBs, but really it's just how we feel the quarterbacks are going to do during the year this year, kind of looking at this season, and that's where it's always kind of interesting to go back and forth. But we will be looking at our rankings for that. Before we do that, still some camp news. Big blow up over the weekend. Micah Parsons requesting a trade, giving some very unflattering pictures of the behind the scenes stuff for the Cowboys. Jerry Jones on Saturday saying that Cowboys fans shouldn't lose any sleep over this. And you and I talked about this before, and I told you I thought it was kind of ridiculous. I thought the whole way they've handled it this offseason has been kind of ridiculous. I still don't think they're going to trade Micah Parsons. And I don't think Terry McLaurin's going to get traded either, who has also put the trade request. But these teams need to get their act together because these are some distractions with some of your pretty marquee players that feel like needless self-inflicted wounds to me.
Well, it's needless for the Cowboys from the perspective of we're rational human beings. But Jerry needs the drama. Jerry needs to have Jerry's name in the headlines. And we've seen it with Cowboys players before. When he's got an elite player, he wants that player to feel like they have a direct line to him. In part because I think he feels like he can kind of control the situation or maybe manipulate it. And do I think that what Parsons was saying is like, oh, he wants to negotiate with me because I'm not as knowledgeable and not my agent? Sure. I mean, Jerry's a billionaire. He didn't make his money by doing bad deals. And so he wants to, when they get that deal done, he wants to have the edge. Micah, I think, is smarter than a lot of players in the fact that he's like, you know what? No, I'm not going to sit here with just you and me and agree to something without talking to my agent, without talking to my team. And I think that's caught Jerry off guard a little bit. And so he's trying to use the press to put a little pressure on him to say, hey, man, I thought we were dudes. I thought we were buddies. I thought we were friends. And Mike is saying, yeah, I like you, dude. But I feel like you're trying to kind of manipulate the situation here. And maybe you don't like being called out on it, but I don't like what I think you tried to do. I think he feels like, Jerry tried to diddy him. And it is, how much of it is part of the process? A lot of it. We see it all the time. They start to negotiate in the media. They make statements. A deal gets done, and it's like, this is where I wanted to be the whole time. I want to finish my career as a Cowboy. It rarely ever works out when you sit out, because it's not like, you lose time. If you sit out the season, you lose time towards free agency. You're obviously not getting paid. You're getting penalized. You're getting another year older. And while Parsons is younger, we've seen what it didn't work out for Lev Bell. There are countless other players that have sat out and came back and went somewhere else, and it just wasn't the same. I think it's the same thing with Terry McLaurin. McLaurin, he's 30. I think he wants to set himself up to be able to finish his career in Washington, but he wants to be treated fairly. he's not asking to reset the top of the market, but I think he's asking for, where's Metcalf? Top 5, top 8, top 3, somewhere below the very top. He's saying, look, I've shown you I'm worth it. And I'm still young enough that 3 to 4 years, it's a deal you should make. Again, part of the process, asking for trades. I think both of them end up signing where they are. That being said, anything can happen.
Couple of injury notes from camp. Michael Wilson of the Cardinals took a tough hit in practice in concussion protocol. Not as bad as Colts running back Salvon Ahmed, who was the victim of a hip drop tackle in training camp by his own team and is out for the season. Then for the Bills, Khalil Shakir, week to week now with an ankle sprain. Meanwhile, James Cook, who had reported and been practicing the last 2 days, switched to a hold in as he seeks a contract extension. Any of these making you nervous? Obviously, Ahmed probably a big factor in fantasy, but hard to believe there are people that dumb in practice to do that to their own team. The other ones, I feel like the most worrying to me is Shakir.
Well, yeah, because Shakir was set up to be that, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker kind of wide receiver 1 for the Bills. And so missing time and, a sprain can often linger and limit your mobility. And that's kind of what Shakir uses to get open. He's that short area, change of direction guy that, creates separation in that fashion. So it could be a problem for him. The Bills, they've got a wide receiver room that desperately needs someone to step up and take control and be the guy. I think this year was an opportunity for Shakir to kind of be an Amon-Ra St. Brown light kind of wide receiver 1 for them. When you have Josh Allen, and the way he runs the ball, and they use all of their running backs in a lot of different fashions. They run, they pass. They've got Dalton Kincaid. I think they're waiting for a giant breakout from him. And then they added a whole bunch of speculative veterans that hopefully somebody steps up. So it does put Shakir behind the 8 ball a little bit, in that because there was no established alpha, somebody the door is open now for somebody to become that guy while he's out. Will it happen? I don't know. James Cook doing the same thing that Terry McLaurin and Micah Parsons are doing. He just hasn't hit the point of asking for a trade yet, but would it surprise you if you woke up tomorrow and he asked for a trade? He's standing on business, a business decision, all that. I get where Cook is coming from, because he said, hey, I showed you how valuable I can be. And when we look at him, we're like, yeah, there's no way he's putting up 18 touchdowns. Again, for fantasy, yeah, he's definitely not worth it. And they like Ray Davis. Ty Johnson always seems to be involved. But Cook definitely has a prominent role in that offense. Will he be what he was last year? I don't think he is going to be able to produce that touchdown volume. And his actual reception, yardage, rushing yardage production was very similar to the year before. It was just buoyed by that extremely large amount of touchdowns. So I like James Cook. I'm probably avoiding him in drafts because he's going to go before I'm willing to draft him. Michael Wilson, lots of injuries in college. That's always been the thing you fear with him. Concussion is never fun, never funny. And, well, I don't think behind Harrison and McBride, he was in for a super large workload. He did show last year he could be productive at the wide receiver position for the Cardinals. And if Harrison and McBride are able to produce close to what we think they are, and then Wilson can step up, Kyler Murray might, after all, get that 4,000-yard season that's been avoiding him for 73 years.
I'll believe it when I see it. I do wonder with James Cook too if he's getting some advice from his brother, because I was looking at Dalvin Cook. He had 4 really good years there for Minnesota, where he was a Pro Bowler each year, and they were like, "Nah, it's not worth paying." And then he's fallen off the shelf. I don't even know if he's on a team, but he has only 234 yards the last 2 seasons combined on 3 or 4 teams. He just went nowhere, and so it can go really quick for a running back. We saw that with Todd Gurley too. One big injury can knock you out. So it makes sense James Cook going into year 4 trying to protect his future a little bit. The last thing I wanted to ask you about, this was a rumored trade that popped up today. Apparently the teams had explored swapping Tyreek Hill for Terry McLaurin, but the Dolphins want a high pick in addition to McLaurin, which I find a little bit ridiculous, but it does make sense in that both teams, I think, are worried about their receivers. I don't know that it's great for McLaurin to go to the Dolphins, but I was thinking, I think trading him for Tyreek Hill would screw the Commanders.
Yeah, I did see a tweet about a trade, but it was from a fake Adam Schefter account. A trade for McLaurin and Hill. I haven't seen any legitimate, what I consider legitimate news about it, but I haven't really looked either.
I mean, Sports Illustrated posted 49 minutes ago about the rumor deal for Terry McLaurin for Tyreek Hill.
Okay. That would be the first I've heard of a legitimate news station saying this could be real. We are not in those offices. GMs are talking to each other all of the time as they try to improve their teams. I would not be surprised if on a daily basis, at least 5 preeminent players are discussed amongst different teams, just because you're always looking to do something. That's what we love about Dynasty is, you always have a chance to make a move and get better. And what do we love about Dynasty is we get to play GM. Well, why would we think real life GMs are any different than we are as Dynasty managers? Yes, they make a lot of money and they get a lot more accolades than we do, but they're trying to make their teams better. They're looking for the opportunities to improve the rosters and get their coaches the players they need to win the Super Bowl, because that's really what matters. So conversations happen all the time that don't get leaked, that don't go anywhere. I think we're naive to think anything different. So is it plausible that they had a conversation? Sure. But I feel like Tyreek is a lot closer to retirement than Terry McLaurin. And he's a lot bigger headache than Terry McLaurin. So I would not be the one giving up the high draft pick along with the players. So that probably shoots it down. But then again, we see trades we don't understand all the time. So, who knows?
Well, and I think the real thing is something's going to happen with Tyreek Hill, because now we already have him commenting on coaching strategies and Mike McDaniel commenting about those comments, which is never a great sign. Tua started out training camp by saying Tyreek Hill has a lot to do to earn back trust. I don't think he wants to be there. That's one of the reasons I think the Dolphins are liable to be a dumpster fire. And honestly, if you're the Commanders, a team that surprised the world and went to the NFC Championship game last year, pay freaking Terry McLaurin. Don't take Antonio Brown's cousin and throw him out there. The guy that's on the Antonio Brown path. That ain't working. Tyreek Hill has off-field issues too. He's going through some messy divorce and accusations. He started out last season getting detained by police, which at the time seemed one way, but the more things that seem to creep out, the more that seems to be maybe didn't get reported exactly how it happened.
His mouth.
Well, there's probably both sides did some dumb things is more like it, rather than it being just a total one-sided. So if I'm the Commanders, or if I'm any serious contending team, I do not want to trade assets for Tyreek Hill. And the fact the Dolphins think that they could get Terry McLaurin and a first or second round pick, goodbye. That's probably why those discussions haven't gone anywhere.
Well,
they probably called and they're like, hey, what if we sent you Tyreek and you sent us Terry and a second? And the Commanders GM checked to make sure that it wasn't like one of those draft day prank calls, and I was like, hey, we're good. And then
who would make that trade? Who in the NFL would make that trade? Like,
I don't even think Jerry Jones would make that trade. Honestly, Cleveland probably is the one that they would probably trade Jerry Jeudy and a first
shut
for
your whore mouth.
Tyreek Hill. I mean, you've met their owner. It's not out of the realm of possibility that the new Colts owner, who Captain Sideline Headset, would urge them to trade Michael Pittman for. And honestly, Michael Pittman might be better for the Dolphins. That might help both. That's a trade that might help both.
Yeah. Because that puts Jalen Waddle and Pittman in complementary roles versus Waddle and Hill in very similar type of roles.
I think you need somebody that was feeling a little desperation at receiver. That's also probably on the outside looking in when it comes to a playoff potential situation. But it's a lot to, or you need somebody who thinks that they can handle problem children no matter what. Like I could see, I don't think Pittsburgh wants to move DK Metcalf, but I could see them trading for Tyreek Hill because they believe that anyone can be kept in line by their coaching staff.
But we also see Pittsburgh sees it coming and gets out of the crazy wide receiver business. And if you've been out there acting crazy, I think the last thing they're going to do is say, bring him here. We can keep him under control.
That's why I say it's got to be a team that needs to throw up a YOLO ball to try to get into the playoffs. And I don't know what, I just feel like we're cruising for a meltdown there in Miami, which probably brings us to an interesting discussion of the top 25 quarterbacks. So I will let you kick it off. Let's take it. You can do 25 to 14, which is roughly our quarterback two, because I'm going to lump 13 is kind of a tweener. So we'll do that in another chunk, but roughly 25 to 14 is kind of a quarterback two range. So why don't you tick off the guys that you have in that range?
And amazingly enough, that's an actual tier for me, is that 25 to 14. I feel like any quarterback that I'm getting ready to list could finish as QB 14, or they could finish as QB 25, and it isn't going to take a whole lot. Or 12 of them could finish literally scoring within 20 points of each other. So that being said, my QB 25, Cameron Ward, hearing lots of good stuff coming out about him in camp, but he is a rookie, second-year head coach. They had some offensive line issues last year that they've kind of tried to address. They don't have any elite players at running back, wide receiver, or tight end. And so you're bringing in a rookie quarterback. albeit one that's fairly well traveled and been successful at several different levels in college, to elevate this team. Now, I like Calvin Ridley a lot, but I don't know that he's not in that elite category, and he is their best wide receiver. You know, they've got is it Van Jefferson that's there now, or is he's in Pittsburgh?
Van
Robert
Jefferson's
Woods.
in Tennessee.
Okay, it is Van
It's
Jefferson.
Pittsburgh's. Robert Woods is in Pittsburgh. Yeah, you got it backwards.
Same guy.
That's it. Tennessee has like a lot of guys that have undefined. They have Lockett, they have Van Jefferson, Shamir Adeyemi, Xavier Restrepo, Alec Aomanor, and Calvin Ridley. I mean, they have options.
If I'm going to draft one, Ridley's the guy I want. But no, it feels like Ward could end up being a mid-level to even high-ish some weeks, QB2. Maybe he even drops a QB1 week here and there. But I like what I'm hearing about him. At 24, I got Bryce Young. After he got the starting job back last year, now he's one I feel like I may be low on. He was QB 12 to finish out the season after he got the starting job back from Andy Dalton. They added a lot of firepower at the receiver position with Tedoroa McMillan. You know, they brought in Rico Dowdle to back up Chuba Hubbard, which gives them a great 1-2 punch at the running back position. New head coach that seems to do great in getting the most out of his quarterbacks and wide receivers. Then you've also got Xavier Legette, Adam Thielen, and Jalen Coker at the wide receiver position. So they've got some weapons. I just don't know, when is it going to gel? Again, could be a little low on him, but I've got him at 24. 23, I got Matthew Stafford dealing with his annual back issue again. But he's got weapons in Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and Kyron Williams. I would expect him to be good to go to start the season. And as long as he can stay healthy, he's going to probably be a 4,530 guy. And I just don't in my mind, I don't see how Matthew Stafford cannot be successful if Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, and him play all 17 games. This he could be a QB1 if that happens. 22, I got JJ McCarthy. A lot of unknowns here. He's been in the system for a year. Took a lot of mental reps last year while he recovered from the injury. And, it's been reported he was essentially winning that job coming out of training camp last year, got injured. And then Sam Darnold went out and had a career year, earned himself a nice free agent contract. Least of all, he's got Justin freaking Jefferson. We're probably looking at a 3-game suspension for Jordan Addison. TJ Hawkinson, he's better than steady, more dynamic, really good tight end, top 5 tight end. But he just doesn't seem to get a lot of he doesn't incite a lot of fireworks. 21, I got Tua Tagovailoa. If you've got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they invested some in their offensive line. They brought in Darren Waller. They're going to probably get 10 games out of him at the tight end. Let's see if he's got anything left. But when that offense is clicking, it's so productive. You got Devin Achane, great pass catcher, dynamic runner. Tua, again, he's one that could finish at the top end of this. He could drop all the way out of the top 25. Number 20, I got Trevor Lawrence. I wanted to put Trevor Lawrence higher. I struggled. I'm like, well, where? I feel like he's, Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter and Brenton Strange, Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne. They've got a lot of weapons. Dave, Canales is in there. They brought Liam Cohen's who came in here. First year, we saw Cohen put up big numbers with 2 wide receivers for Baker. I want him to reach that potential. But, man, he's been around a while and he hasn't reached it yet. And so now I get a little bit nervous. And so I just kind of dropped him at 20. Number 19, I got Michael Penix. Phenomenal weapons. Hopefully Darnell Mooney is back soon because he provides that lid lifter deep threat. But I think, I'm not calling for a fourth-year Kyle Pitts breakout. I do think that
fifth year
Kyle Pitts breakout. I do think the injury that he had to his knee has sapped some of his athleticism, and that's probably part of what has shown. They got Bijan Robinson and Drake London, and London got a ton of targets when Penix was starting. Penix is a kind of the mad bomber, a la Daryl LaMonica, Kenny Stabler. He'd have been a great Raider, I think. But he's the second-year player, only played three games last year, aside from mop-up duty. I like Penix a lot. Just a little bit of uncertainty surrounding him. Jordan Love at 18. They put a lot of emphasis on their running game. Matthew Golden was their first-round pick in 20-ish years or something at the wide receiver position. Love is very steady, good athlete, mobile, good arm. They got nice weapons with Tucker Kraft, with Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, and now Matthew Golden. And then, their second team of wide receivers with Dontavian Wicks and Bo Melton, and always seems to play well when they get in. We'll see if we get much from Christian Watson when he comes back from injury again this year. Again, it's one I almost like this tier. I could have just shuffled it and put it up there and found reasons why each of these players could be up there. Number 17, I got Drake May. May looked good last year. They added Stephon Diggs. I love that for him. Vrabel is a tough-nosed coach. He's going to work that offensive line and really work to rebuild it. They're going to be fundamentally sound. They have a dynamic, explosive running back in Travion Henderson. I think Ramondre Stevenson still gets plenty of work out of the backfield. And then it comes down to who else is going to step up outside of Stephon Diggs. Hunter Henry already has good chemistry at the tight end position. So then it comes down to, Pop Douglas is in the slot. Kayshon Boutte flashed a little bit last year. Jalen Polk, he's a deep threat, but he didn't really do much. They got the venerable veteran Kendrick Bourne still there. I don't know that, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Bourne catches 75 passes, and it wouldn't surprise me if he gets cut.
That is a wide range of outcomes.
Number 16, I got C.J. Stroud. I was high on Stroud after his rookie year, and he took a beating last year. Did not perform up to those rookie expectations. Nico Collins and him have really good chemistry. They brought in Christian Kirk. I expect he's going to play well. Can he stay healthy? That's going to be the real question. They drafted Jaden Higgins. Yeah, Higgins and Jalen. Is it Noel there?
Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins went there. They also have Christian Kirk.
Yeah. And so they have good secondary options. That Dalton Schultz is a reliable tight end, if not spectacular. Their real question is going to be at the running back position. Mixon is nursing a foot injury. Reports out of camp that Nick Chubb looks like Kareem Hunt, and that does not bode well. That was always my fear. Like, there was part of me this offseason, it's like, man, I think I can get Nick Chubb a lot really, really cheap. But he's coming off that injury, but it's like, man, he's Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb doesn't get outworked, but he's had some devastating knee injuries over the course of his college and NFL career. And at some point that just catches up with you. And as much as I love Nick Chubb, that was the worry. Now, that being said, he could tough out this year and then look a lot better next year, because we see it all the time. That first season back from an injury, it doesn't quite go like we had hoped. And so, I don't know, but they have. It feels like right now they're going to have to lean on the passing game. We'll see how that works out. Did they do enough to rebuild that offensive line? Because they sure seem to jettison a whole bunch of guys that were perceived as pretty good, a la Laramie Tunsil, excuse me. Number 15, I got Brock Purdy. This could go a couple different ways. One, Christian McCaffrey's back. They let him run the ball, and he takes a lot of pass attempts away because he's running the ball. But I expect George Kittle to be reliable and very, very productive. Ricky Pearsall's already nursing an injury, but he looks like he's back from that. Ayuk's expected to be out for a little bit. Jawan Jennings is angry and wants a new contract. And then Demarcus Robinson, who was their fourth, went and got himself pulled over for drunk driving. So that probably isn't going to affect his season this year because they tend to drag that stuff out in the court system. But we'll see. This Purdy may face the most adversity he's had so far outside of ripping the tendons in his elbow and still having to come back out there and play ball. And at number 14, Kyler Murray. He's got some weapons in Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride. James Conner out this week talking up Trey Benson, basically saying, I don't know how they're going to not lean into giving Trey Benson the ball. Yeah, I get it. I'm the man, but Trey Benson is good. So, it seems like he's very supportive of Benson. They're going to have a great relationship. Murray tends to make up for it on the ground, but we've seen him get dinged up when he runs. And when he gets injured, that really hampers a lot of time he'll injure his lower body, and that really hampers his ability to throw the ball, his mobility to get away from the rush. We lamented weekly on this show how Kyler Murray has never passed for 4,000 yards, and we'll continue to do it either until he retires or he passes for 4,000 yards.
I think it's going to be retire. I don't honestly see it coming. For me at 25, I have Tua. I think Miami's something of a mess, and I also just don't trust him to stay healthy. I don't feel good about the Dolphins. I went back and forth. He's a guy that, if everything was clicking with all those weapons, could have top 12 upside, but I can't buy into it. I have Geno Smith at 24. I think with Bowers and Jacoby Myers and some of the other things, he's going to be a steady low-end QB2. I have Michael Penix Jr. at QB 23. Some questions in Atlanta. Darnell Mooney's still ailing. Are they going to force feed 87 targets to Ray McCloud again? That gives me pause. They can run the ball. What is his completions, turnovers going to be? I think there's going to be some growing pains. I have Aaron Rodgers at 22. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is what he once was, but he was still pretty solid last year. I do have misgivings about some of their lack of targets available to him. They have DK Metcalf. They have two tight ends, which has never really been a big thing for him, but certainly is a big thing for Arthur Smith. We'll see how it works out. I don't think he has the top end that he once did, but I have him sitting in there at 22. I have Trevor Lawrence at 21. I think he's going to be a solid QB2. They've gotten some weapons. I don't know how much I believe in De'Ami Brown, but I think I've liked what I've seen from Travis Hunter, and I love what we have from Brian Thomas. And I think their running game is a little bit more of a question. I have Matthew Stafford at 20, another guy I would love to have up higher, but the injuries scare me. I did have him higher, and then I went back down a little bit. Has good really good weapons, a good back out of the backfield, a couple tight end options, two really good receivers, but it is getting a little concerning. I have Jordan Love at 19. I think that they really like to lean into the running game, and he will have a complementary passing game, and he'll be right about where he was last year. I have Bryce Young up at QB 18. He was QB 20 last year, despite having a hot garbage start and sitting out a few games. I think he's continuing to grow. I think they've gotten him some better options. Legette's going into year 2. He has Ted McMillan now. Adam Thielen's still there as a veteran. Jalen Coker. They are developing a tight end. I think he takes a little bit of a step up. I have Brock Purdy at QB 17. Just some concerns, I think, overall about their receivers and their weapons and their, they brought back Robert Saleh, and even though they lost some marquee players on defense, they still have a heck of a lot of great talent on defense. I think they could be going back to basics and focusing on running the ball and playing smothering defense, which is what they were doing a couple of years ago when they were going really good. I think that is a big addition to them, and I think Purdy would make perfect sense as a solid QB2 option. I have Stroud at QB 16. Kind of feel the same as you. I think he's a solid QB2 option. Houston, another team. I just don't think they're putting up a ton of points. Last year, they came into the season with what we thought was going to be the best trio of receivers in the league, and Dalton Schultz and Joe Mixon, and he still was like a mid-range QB too. They've dealt with injuries. They have some young players, some guys rotating in. When Christian Kirk is able to play 10 healthy games, we can talk about what his production might be. I think Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel are good dynasty picks. I don't know how great they're going to be this year. That kind of leaves them with Nico Collins. They have a steady, if unspectacular, tight end in Schultz, and I think they want to run and they want to play good defense too. I have Justin Fields at 15. I think he has top 12 upside with his running ability, but they have a good running game, and I think that's going to take away some of what his running. And we have yet to see him. We make jokes about Kyler Murray and can he get to 4,000 yards? Can Justin Fields get to 3,000 yards? Because he has never had a professional season where he got to the 3,000-yard mark. And honestly, this may be one of the worst sets of weapons he has. I love Garrett Wilson. No shade on Garrett Wilson. But if your rotating competition for wide receiver 2 is washed Alan Lazard, washed Josh Reynolds, never really showed me much Tyler Johnson or Malachi Corley, that's not great. Plus, they have Ruckert, who hasn't really been much of a factor in the passing game, and the rookie Mason Taylor. They have some options, but they would be better served playing good defense and running the ball, which is what I think they are probably going to focus on doing, which, I think knocks Fields back a little bit. He made a lot of his fantasy points last year with a lot of goal line. He only started 6 games and he scored 5 rushing touchdowns. I don't know if it's the same here with the Jets, who actually have a good set of running backs down there. And then the toughest one for me, I have Caleb Williams at 14. I think he has potential to do higher. He didn't have a terrible rookie season. When you look at his numbers, it was the Bears that were a mess. I like Ben Johnson. I like the set of weapons. I'm just not ready to vault him up there quite yet. Why don't you give me your 13 to 6?
All right. So at 13, I've got Justin Herbert. And this, honestly, it's a ranking not of the talent, but of what I expect out of Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh. I like Ladd McConkey. I think he's a very good receiver, probably destined to spend a lot of his career in the slot once they get a reliable outside receiver. It's not to say he can't play outside, but he's more of a outside in 2 wide receiver sets kind of guy, I think, but still very productive. Bunch of veterans at tight end, Quentin Johnston's back to his old self, dropping balls. They're talking to Keenan Allen. If Allen comes in, then it's definitely going to have McConkey on the outside because, God bless Keenan Allen. He still gets open, but he ain't getting open very far down the field. Trey Harris is the hot rookie down there. I like Harris plenty, but I just feel like behind Omari and Hampton, they're going to be running the ball, whether Najee Harris comes back or not. Number 12, I think I'm in on Caleb Williams this year, and maybe it's my infatuation with what Ben Johnson has done with the Lions offense. And no, I'm not saying that Jared Goff and Caleb Williams are the same type of quarterback. They're not. But I do think that Caleb Williams is a good quarterback. He's very mobile, got a good arm. I think Ben Johnson is going to put him in situations where he can succeed. And he's got a pretty nice stable of weapons. And he did have, I think, a lot better season last year than we remembered. The numbers are anyways. He made some bad decisions. He still struggles with body language, and he's probably going to his entire career. I think he gets upset with himself and he gets upset with his teammates when things don't happen the way they're supposed to. I don't know. That's probably not the best way to handle things, but when you accept that's who he is, but he's got a good arm. He can throw the ball. He's a pretty accurate passer. He's got DJ Moore. He's got Rome Odunze, Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet. Then let's see what happens at that running back position. As soon as Ben Johnson took that job, everybody expected DeAndre Swift was going to get cut, traded at the least, or usurped by some hotness at the rookie position. And they basically brought in what was Monangai, 7th rounder, 6th rounder, kept Roshan Johnson, who can't seem to stay healthy. I'm all in on I drafted DeAndre Swift in our mock that we did last week. I think Swift is going to be, and I was targeting Williams. I just got sniped on him. I think Williams is, between his mobility and the offensive concepts, I think he'll take a step up this year. I got Justin Fields at 11. I agree with you. Other than Garrett Wilson, not a lot of great weapons, but I think he's going to make up for it on the ground. It wouldn't surprise me if he rushes for 1,000 yards and gets close to double-digit touchdowns. He's a solid dude, 6'2", 230. He's a big, fast guy. If he can get enough protection and they can put him in an offense that suits what he does strength-wise from the passing position, there's an opportunity for there to be success. And to me, honestly, success is 30, 100 yards. I'm not expecting him to, go Lamar Jackson or anything through the air and throw 36 touchdowns. I think if he can have a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, if he throws 15 touchdowns and 7 interceptions and rushes for 1,000 yards and throws for 3,000, I think that's a reasonably good year that will put him in contention for QB1, a QB1. 10, I got Jared Goff. Is Johnny Morton going to be able to keep the ship, keep that train on the track? We're waiting to see. He's still got great weapons with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs, Dave Montgomery, Jamison Williams. The offensive line is getting old. Ragnow retired at center. Taylor Decker's getting old at left tackle. Penei Sewell is probably their best lineman. He's out there at right tackle. They brought in that Tate Ratledge from Georgia, drafted him. He is a guard. He's played some center in college. With the Ragnow retirement, he's slid into the center position. Is he going to make the transition successfully is the big question. But Goff makes good decisions, gets rid of the ball, can throw the ball really well. He's gonna get his 25 yards rushing this year. Number 9, I got Dak Prescott. I think it comes down to Prescott and Burrow to be the league leaders in pass attempts. Dallas doesn't have a great running game. We'll have to see what happens with Javonte Williams and Jaden Blue. Can they be better than Rico Dowdle was last year? That's wait to be seen. But they've got George Pickens that just signed Jake Ferguson to a contract extension. And gosh, CeeDee Lamb, who doesn't love CeeDee Lamb? Jalen Tolbert was coming on early in the offseason before they traded for Pickens. Tolbert was kind of a guy I begged to break out this year. I think bringing Pickens in probably delays that breakout. But I did like what Tolbert was bringing to the table. At number 8, I got your boy Bo Nix. Rushed for over 400 yards. Stepped in when a lot of people weren't sure he should have been a first-round draft pick, and just went about his business and did his job. Developed a really, really strong connection with Cortland Sutton. They brought in Evan Ingram at the tight end position, who's, everyone's like, oh, that's the new Joker. Taysom Hill was a joker. Evan Ingram's no Taysom Hill. I think Ingram's going to, though, get plenty of targets with Devon Vele. Marvin Mims had a nice breakout towards the end of last season. Troy Franklin, is he going to be able to come on this year? They've got some weapons there. They brought in R.J. Harvey and signed J.K. Dobbins, so that kind of pushes Jaleel McLaughlin and Audric Estime down the depth chart a little bit. We'll see. Can Dobbins stay healthy? Ben Albright was saying earlier today or yesterday that he feels like until R.J. Harvey gets the pass protection down, we're going to see an awful lot of J.K. Dobbins. Does that mean, is that good for Dobbins if he's out there a lot, getting a lot of touches, having to pick up those blitzing linebackers and whatnot with his injury history? We'll see. Number 7, I got Baker Mayfield, 4,500 yards and 41 touchdowns last year. Chris Godwin was wide receiver 2 through the first half of the season. Mike Evans, it was his 12th straight 1,000-yard season last year, 11th straight. He's going to, for another one. Cade Otton is a good tight end. Unfortunately for him, Tampa has Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka, Jalen McMillan, Bucky Irving, and Rashad White. And so Otton is one of those guys that, like, if he just could get, if he got a consistent amount of opportunity, like if he could get 6 targets a game, I think he would be a very consistently productive tight end. But I just don't think he's going to be able to get that kind of volume at tight end. Love Emeka Egbuka, Ohio State fan. And I think whenever Godwin and Evans decide to retire, Egbuka is going to take over. And from what they've been saying, there's a good chance Egbuka is going to be kind of holding that door for him sooner rather than later. I like Emeka Egbuka a lot, and I think Jalen McMillan is good. They've got a succession plan there. His third OC in 3 years. Has Baker Mayfield ever had the same OC 2 years in a row? That's a great question. But it's time for him to see if he can repeat last year's numbers. That was a big year last year. And then at number 6, I got Patrick Mahomes. He went from being everybody's QB1 a few years ago to, settling down. And now he's just a good NFL quarterback on a pass-first team. There's been some talk coming out of camp that Isaiah Pacheco looks fantastic, looks even better in the passing game than he ever has in his entire career, that coming off of the injury. And last year, he just wasn't himself. So I don't know that what's his name again? Oh, Pacheco is going to get it. I think the way he plays, it's tough to give him a 3-down role because I don't think he can hold up for the entire year the way he plays. but I think he's going to get plenty of opportunity to keep defenses honest. Travis Kelce, for all the talk about him having a bad year last year, he's still one of the best tight ends in the game. And with that wide receiver group they have, I think it's set up to be very explosive between Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, and Xavier Worthy, even with Rice potentially missing 3 to 6 games.
Yeah, you and I have mostly similar guys. Once we got up to the top 13, I also have Justin Herbert at 13. I had him at various places in the top 12. I just think they're going to be a run heavy team, and that takes a toll. I have Drake May at 12. You kind of pushed in on Caleb Williams. I went in with May. From the time he inherited the starting spot with a much worse set of weapons, he did quite a bit with it, even on a terrible team. Now Josh McDaniels is back, and love him or hate him, he has been very successful at running offenses. They improved their group of wide receivers quite a bit with Diggs coming in and drafting Kyle Williams. They brought in Travion Henderson as a weapon in the backfield. I think Drake May will sneak into low-end QB1 territory. Kyler Murray at 11. I don't love Murray. We do make a lot of jokes about him not throwing for 4,000 yards. He never has. I don't know if he ever will. But that hasn't really stopped him from being in the low-end QB1 range. He was QB10 last year, even though he still didn't throw for 4,000 yards. He just does enough with his legs and with everything else to sneak in there. I have Dak Prescott at 9, Dak Prescott at 10, Jared Goff at 9. I think those guys are going to throw the ball a lot. I still like what they're doing. I have Bo Nix at 8. He was QB7 last year, and he got better and stronger as the season went along. They've done some things to help him. I think he's still going to be a very solid player in there. Last year's quarterback group is looking very impressive. If you invested in any of kind of the top 5 or 6 out of there, you could have a good playable quarterback, and that is not something we've been able to say in a long time. I have Patrick Mahomes at 7, Baker Mayfield at 6. I just think Mayfield's been better for fantasy and has a better set of weapons, so I think he'll end up a little bit higher. No shade on Patrick Mahomes, still a great player, but that's just the way it goes. You and I have the exact same 5 players in our top 5, but a slightly different order. So why don't you give your final 5 order?
So I've got Jalen Hurts at 5. I just think the amount that he runs, scores those touchdowns, and Saquon Barkley's rushing. A.J. Brown's going to be great. Devonta Smith will be usable. I think Dallas Goedert is going to be volatile. I just feel like there's not as much volume as you would like, but he'll make up for it with rushing touchdowns. Joe Burrow at 4. I'd love to put him up higher, but he doesn't run. He may lead the league in pass attempts. He may lead the league in yards, passing touchdowns. They've got Chase Brown, but he also has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And Burrow pretty much – he wants to throw the ball. He's a slinger. That defense, I think, is, tracking to be improved if they can get Trey Hendrickson in camp ever, is still not going to be great. They're going to have to score a lot of points.
Hendrickson is in camp. He's just
signed.
Practicing.
He's not going to play if he doesn't sign a new deal. I got Josh Allen at number 3. We're splitting hairs here. Allen, I think he's starting to run a little bit less. Still a good passer, though feels like his completion percentage has slipped a couple points the last couple of years. To me, it just feels like the window is closing on that team, and they're for whatever reason they're not able to put together a team since Diggs has left that has this elite wide receiver. Which is, I think, what Allen needs to get to the next level. Jaden Daniels at 2, good passer, great rookie year, rushed for almost 900 yards. I'm not going to be surprised if his rushing yardage comes down a little bit. I think he still rushes a lot. They haven't, their big addition to the running game was Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. They added Deebo Samuel, which is good for the passing game, and he'll get a few carries. Terry McLaurin, I expect him to be back in camp, and happy that he got a new deal. So I feel like there's still plenty of opportunity there. But I'm going to stick with Lamar Jackson at number one. I think he's still running the ball plenty. The passing game is getting better and better. They still have Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely at the tight end position. Zay Flowers is their number one receiver. But Rashad Bateman has finally broke out in the last couple seasons, has put up some nice numbers, and has shown himself to be the red zone threat on the team. And then they added DeAndre Hopkins, which, I mean, I'm not going to be surprised if DeAndre Hopkins is fourth on this team in targets, behind Andrews and Flowers and Bateman. Wouldn't be surprised if he's third. I would be surprised if he is second without an injury to Flowers or Andrews. I like DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's still good, still has a role somewhere, but I don't think he's going to get the volume. But with that receiving core, I think that sets Jackson up to be able to play a very balanced game. They're never going to be a huge volume passing team, especially with Derrick Henry at running back. But they've got a couple speed guys in Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell. And I think it just bodes well for Lamar Jackson to be able to still rush for 800 or 900 yards, pass for 33, 34, 3,800, and into the 20 touchdown zone, 20 plus.
Yeah, and for me, I also have Jalen Hurts at 5. I considered whether I was going to put Mayfield in there, but I think Hurts' running ability, and I think he's going to have more passing than they had last year. I have Lamar Jackson at 4. I'm not maybe as high on the Ravens this year as they finished last year. I think he's still going to be great, but I have him a little lower. I have Burrow at 3. That's actually right where he finished last year. I think you're not wrong. He's probably going to lead the league in passing attempts. And I'm going to be here for it on all the teams I have. He helped win. I'm pretty sure that's why I won our Dynasty League. I'm pretty sure that's the team that I have that's named Cool Joe. And he was, or Joe Cool, and he was Joe Cool last year. I have Jaden Daniels at 2. I thought he was excellent as a rookie, but I mean, what a testament to this class that you and I each have 5 of the year 2 quarterbacks who were rookies last year in our top 17-ish. I have 5 in my top 14, but it's just, that was a good class, and they're definitely performing. And then number 1, I have Josh Allen. I actually think the Bills might be better than they were last year, and I think they're very motivated to win a Super Bowl. Nobody circles the wagons like Bills fans. Apparently, that's me in the off season. Haley Steinfeld had an incredible performance in the movie of the year, Sinners, and I feel like that's going to propel Josh Allen to the Super Bowl so he can be on her level.
Oscar and Super Bowl in the same year?
I think she's a long shot to win an Oscar, but her movie might win some Oscar. Before we get out of here, a couple of questions for you. Who was kind of the biggest riser for you among quarterbacks?
So the biggest risers for me were Nix and Williams because they were rookies last year. Nix especially, I didn't expect as much out of. It felt like Williams was, with the receivers he had last year, was in a position to be able to put up good numbers, but he did. The team was a dumpster fire, and so getting both of them up at 12 and 8. Compared to last year, those two guys are pretty far up my rankings.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nix is probably the one for me. I'm going back to look. I had him at QB 26 this time last year. Let's just say charitably, I was not a believer in what he was going to be able to do, and I was wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. That was made for a more fun season. Who is your biggest faller?
I've got Herbert because I just don't expect there to be a ton of passing volume. And then I was really high on Stroud last year, and the beating he took because of that poor offensive line. And I'm not sure they did enough at the O-line to make up for it. So I am a lot lower on him than I was last year. So those for those two reasons, I've got those two guys falling the most.
I'm going to say from him was Anthony Richardson, because I'm looking back. I had him at QB 12 last year. I thought we were going to see something great. We saw something spectacular. He's not in my top 30 this year. And I think he may not even be the starter over Daniel Jones in Indianapolis. So that was definitely a blow. Who do you think in this of the guys in the top 25? Who is your biggest question mark?
So Penix and Fields for me. Penix, flashed in a good situation, I think, and he's got a big arm, but it's an offense I think that sets up for him to have a good amount of explosive plays, but not a great completion percentage because he is taking those deep shots, and they're a lot harder to convert. And Fields, because he doesn't have a ton of weapons. He hasn't learned to process very quickly, and he could face plant. He's been given an opportunity to resurrect his career, and I hope he does, but I'm nervous about it.
I'm going to say for me, it's Tua, just because I said before, I think he has, in terms of what we've seen him do and the receivers that he currently has, top 12 upside, but how long is he going to be out there? Is Miami going to completely melt down? I'm beyond nervous. Like, I went through a variety of places. I had him like mid QB2, and I just kept sliding him down because I'm just not confident. Who is one guy outside your top 25 who you think could make a strong showing?
The aforementioned Anthony Richardson. There's a possibility that he starts to put it together, and we've had some good reports coming out of camp about his ability to throw the ball, and we've had some that haven't been as good. But his skill set athletically, and Daniel Jones is a good athlete, but Richardson's athletic skill set is just so superior to Jones that if he can get the throwing part of it down at a reason, if he can throw as good as Kyler Murray, if he can throw for, somewhere between Justin Fields 3,000 and Kyler Murray's 3,950, if he can get to where he's in the middle of that and he's completing 63%, 62%, hell, even 61% of his passes, with his ability to run the ball, I could see Richardson have a very productive year and move up. I don't think he's going to get to the QB1 zone, but he could move into the mid QB2 range.
Yeah, and for me, it's Sam Darnold. I didn't believe in him last year, and he finished as QB9. I don't have him in the top 25 this year, but he has JSN and Cooper Kupp, and stranger things have happened. That'll do it for us today, talking quarterbacks. We'll be back on Thursday doing our top 25 tight ends. And if you thought there was kind of a soft, large group between like 13 and 30 at quarterback, welcome to the landscape of tight ends. We will have a lot of fun with that. But
loose ends.
Dennis, if people are looking for something to fill their time, what can they do?
Go to your favorite podcast platform, hit that search bar, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast, give us a subscribe, give us a like, leave us a rating and a review.
That'll do it for us today. We will see you on Thursday. That is also the resumption of games. If you're looking for something else to fill your time, Hard Knock with my Buffalo Bills kicks off tomorrow night. So I'm sure I will have some gems from that to share. I'll be looking and seeing who stands out at camp. But until then, we'll see you guys on Thursday.